Alors, bonjour à tous et bienvenue dans le Zenith Language Show. Je m'appelle Hana et je suis enseignante au centre Zenith. Aujourd'hui, je vais vous parler de littérature et j'espère que ça fonctionne. Alors, donc, euh, bonjour de nouveau. My name is Hana. I'm a teacher at the Zenith Center, and today I'm going to speak about literature. I would like at first to explain a little bit more about what we are trying to do with those little weekly Facebook Live. The Zenith Center is offering French classes for A1, A2, and very shortly B1 levels. The Facebook Lives are done by the 4 teachers of the center, but you should keep in mind that we are not providing online classes on this channel. There is a very good reason for that. Learning a new language takes time and efforts from the students. The teacher is here to guide you and help you find the most suitable ways of learning, to help you find the motivation sometimes, but not here to feed you. And we cannot feed you actually. To learn a new language, you cannot be passively watching an hour-long French program once a week on your Facebook account. It requires a lot of efforts and active attempts on practicing your hearing, speaking, reading, and writing skills. So we had already 2 lives, one last week and one the week before, done by our teacher and my colleague Roman. And in our first live, Roman talked a little bit about French books. And I would like to go deeper on this subject and to explore different aspects of it today with you. Reading is always useful to learn a new language. I deeply think that to be able to learn a new language, you need to find a necessity for it. Reading in French can be a good motivation, even if, as we said before, communication is very, very important. And Roman did emphasize on this part. In some countries, you can even find classes to learn what they called le français instrumental French. And these classes aims to make the students able to read in French and not to be able to speak or anything else, but it's really focusing on the reading. So that's also a possibility. So my first advice about reading is the same as the advice that Roman gave about movies. You can go for stories you already know, like Harry Potter, for instance. If you already know the story, you will be able to focus on the language and hence to learn more. You can also pick up books that were adapted for the cinema. You can also choose to start with children's books. But children's books are a little bit tricky, so you need to be careful about that. Because actually a French native speaker's kid will have a different vocabulary than the one of a French as foreign language beginners, which means that you can think that the vocabulary will be easier, and it can be in some cases, but there may be a lot of words that you will miss because you are actually not using them in class, for instance. So it is perfectly normal to find a children's book not that easy to read. And of course, the positive aspect of children's books are the fact that you will have some drawing usually, and the drawing can help you understand the story. And also, and that is very, very important, the size of the book. If the book is shorter, then it is something nice for beginner students and for students in general, because it will give you a feeling of achievement. And this is very important when you learn a language. So you can be proud of yourself. You can be proud that you actually managed to read that book till the end and that you understood it. And whereas if you take a very big and long book and serious book, maybe you will be afraid of the quantity also. So this is leads to my second point, which is to be careful about the publication date. The older the book is, the more difficult it will be, even if it is for children then. The language is in permanent evolution. It is changing from a generation to another. So the language, for instance, of the 18th century is not what you are learning in class, and absolutely not what you are learning in class. That doesn't mean that you will never be able to read them, those books of the 18th century or even the 19th century, but just that you can keep them for a time when you feel confident enough about your language skill to learn new things and to face the difficulties. And to that small construction problems and such things will not be an issue for you, but that you can focus on other things. I have another point, which is linked to my experience as a teacher. So I was also a teacher in French secondary school. So I was teaching to French natives. And so my experience as a French, as a teacher in the French secondary school and as a French of foreign language, as a French foreign language, sorry, I would always be keen to see you reading the classics in the original text. I'm not very fond of the adaptations of those books for students of French as foreign language or for younger students, because I have been noticing that once you read those books, you are not very keen to go back to the original text. And I find it very, very sad. But this is a very personal opinion, and I know that it is not even shared with my colleagues at the Center Zenith, so I'm taking it completely on me. So I know that many teachers love this easier version of the classics. I know that they know how to work with them. As for me, I prefer to find other options, like to find, there is a lot of amazing books for that are easier to get through, and I think I would prefer my students to go for those books instead of the easier version of the classics. But you need, of course, to see what is suiting you the most, and the only thing that really matters when you are trying to choose a book in French and when you are reading a book in French is if you are enjoying it or not. The pleasure you are getting from reading, even in a foreign language, is really the most important thing. So I was willing to give you an example, and I think that's why I'm not so fond of those easier versions. One of the French most important writers is probably Victor Hugo, and he wrote, among other novels, Les Misérables, and it is a writer that was born in 1802, and he died in 1885. His writing is extremely powerful. I think that everyone in France knows more or less the story of his novel, Les Misérables, but also of Notre-Dame de Paris, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and I'm pretty sure that many of you also know that that book or that story. But so the story is not the most important part of it, but the power of the verb of Hugo is what is making it so special. And actually, I must say that's, again, it's very personal, but if I'm reading it, even if I'm taking a page randomly in the book and I start reading it, and especially if I read it aloud to someone, it really gives me goosebumps. And this feeling, I think you don't get it with the easier version of it. And and that's worth it. It really is. And that's why I would say maybe be a little bit patient, wait a little bit, and read those kind of books when you are feeling ready for them, and in the original version, so that you can get how powerful it is. And you also need to know, and this is also a very important point, that it will always be difficult. But it is also difficult for French native speakers. I mean, nobody speaks anymore the slang of the 19th century. And so even a French native speaker will miss a few words, will not be able to understand everything, but that's okay. And that leads to my third point, which is a very important one. Do not read with a dictionary. This is probably the biggest and the strangest advice I can give you about reading in French. Do not use a dictionary, because reading is always a matter of speed, and the meaning of a sentence will vanish if you are too long to reach the end of it. It means that was also proven, and when you are going to a remedial teacher, that is one of the thing that can be tested, is your speed in reading, because if the speed is not fast enough, it's not going fast enough, then you are forgetting what you are the start of the sentence, and it makes everything more difficult. So this is the first reason for the dictionary. And the second is that if you are stopping yourself every time to find out the meaning of a word, then what you will lose is not only the meaning of the sentence, but it's also the motivation that you have to learn the book. It means you are making an exercise out of something that should be a pleasure and that should stay a pleasure. So, and this is normal. I mean, you shouldn't get guilty about those things. It's perfectly fine and normal to lose motivation if you need to go every 5 minutes to check the dictionary or the computer and the meaning of a word. So what you need is the general meaning of the story, and of course what I said before, the power of the words and of the rhythm of the sentence and such things, and the pleasure of reading, of course. This won't come with a dictionary. Allow yourself to miss some words, not to understand everything word by word. If a word is important, then the word will tend to come back, and then the context will help you to understand it by yourself, or you will have to look at it in the dictionary, but that will be one word out of maybe a dozen or 100, I don't know. And this one word, then you are sure also to keep it in mind. So that will be way more effective, because if you look every 5 minutes in the dictionary for a word, then you will definitely forget about it. I mean, you will not remember the words you checked. You will not even remember the sentences that you read in that way. So it will not to take your dictionary when you are reading. It will let you and give you the possibility to be immersed in the French reading. And this is the third positive point about it. You won't use the translation anymore, or not as much as if you are checking everything in the dictionary. And you won't focus on the words, but on the sentences, which means you will also be more careful about the construction and how the sentences are made and such things. And this is also very, very important. So I think it will be more beneficial in the end to be able to read without a dictionary. And of course, I'm not asking the beginner to do it, or to try to take a very huge book and to read it fully. But that's why the most important thing is to be able to choose your book according to what you like, according to what you want to read, and according to your level, of course. And this leads to my third point, which is also about the period we are going on. So most of the world is in confinement nowadays, and because of that, a lot of possibilities and a lot of people are making it more easier to find audiobook for free on the internet. And if you're afraid to pick up a book in French, you can find audio matching it, and you can read it while listening to it. And this combination can also be very, very good, because it will help you to understand more, as you will get the tone and the emotion through the audio. And the combination of both reading and listening is a very good exercise. So I think it can be an option. It will look a little easier for you, and on the same time you will learn a lot of things with it, including how to pronounce the different words, because you know that there is I don't know if we can say a problem, but in French we are saying, and Roman had also to answer a question about this last week, the spelling can be very different from the way we are pronouncing the words. And this is coming because French is a language that chooses to stay very close to the etymology in the writing. But of course the pronunciation is changing from time to time. And if the spelling is keeping like marks of what the ancient French was, then it tends to differ from what we are saying and the sound we are producing. And we are slowly reaching one of my last points. One last thing that you need to know about the French literature is that, in the same way that the Indian literature or even movies are full of references to the Indian epics, the Western literature is full of reference to the Greco-Latin mythology, especially Homer's work, and the Bible. Out of any religious considerations, it is part of the culture. French natives are nurtured by those stories and won't probably even acknowledge the references or allusions, but will be able to understand them. As students of a foreign language, and this will really depends on what you know already and not yet, you will probably have to decipher those references. This you will have for sure, but maybe it will be easier or a little bit more difficult depending on what you already read or on your background and such things. You can find very helpful books for that, and this time you can choose to read books in very, very different ways. I mean, I'm not going to go again on the original version, because of course original version are not even in French, and so this time you can decide to go for kid versions or for any version you want. Actually, there is plenty of different versions that you can read, and it depends also on what you like to read. And for instance, you can find a collection called Contes et Légendes 2 by the edition Pocket Junior. So I think I got one sample for the Bible. I don't have the other one. It's somewhere else, but this one. I don't know. Oh yes, this way. Sorry. So this is a good way of learning the stories of that comes in the Bible, but also in the mythology. And those stories are going to give you the background of a lot of stories, and they are really a key to the French literature. To be able to enjoy literature, I think it's very important to be able to understand it. It's a little bit the same in every country, but if you are completely outside of something, it's more difficult to enjoy it, because you will feel that it's like a private joke. If you don't get it, it's not funny. So you need to get used to it to be able to enjoy it. And so I have 10 minutes left, and then I'm free for the questions. As a recreative and funny conclusion of the first part of this live, And as a reward for the courageous people who have been listening to me till now, I would like to speak about connections between the French culture and the Bollywood Hindi cinema. I'm pretty sure that many of you have watched the movies I'm going to speak about, but I'm not very sure that you will know all the things I'm going to say. Maybe yes, maybe no. You will tell me in the comments, maybe. So I picked up movies that have something to do with France and with the French culture. So the first thing is about France. It's easier to see it. So of course I'm not going to be exhaustive at all. I just pick up a few things to give you maybe the will, the curiosity to go back and to check for more, or to ask for more. But I'm not sure I will be able to answer it, at least not tonight. So the first thing I was willing to speak about was about the language, for sure, and so it is something that is to be found in the movie Gajini, starring Amir Khan. I am very sorry about the way I'm pronouncing the Indian words and nouns. So it is something that I gave to my A1 students to work on direction, like go left, go right, and such things. It is to be found in the song Beka. Sorry again about the pronunciation. And Amir Khan is explaining to a couple, and I think the couple is Dutch and not French, but again, you can guess it in another way. So he is explaining to a couple how to reach Nariman Point in Mumbai, and he is doing it in French because the couple doesn't speak English. So hearing a Bollywood hero practicing his French is delightful. So I really advise you to go and check it because it's really nice, even if it is very short. So here is my second point about France. So many movies, plenty of movies were shot in France, and especially in Paris. So I would like to just quote a few. I'm sure you know them. So the starting of Dawn, Ishq in Paris, with a song partly in French, which is called It Is All About Tonight. But be careful not to use it with French ladies. That's usually the case with French, partly in French song. Be careful before using it. There is also a part of Queen that is in Paris, and Befikre, and so on. But I would like to stop on that last one, Befikre, which is kind of a nice introduction to France, but you need to be careful because it's full of cliché on the country, but maybe that's also the interest of the movie. If you're already in France, then you can probably enjoy the caricatural depiction that you will find in it. For instance, a 10-minute start with only French kisses. You won't see that in France. I mean, yeah, this is just a little bit too much, but it's really nicely done, and I like that in the movie. And you have also like incredible view from the top of the Opera building. And if you are in Paris, you need to know that the top of the Opera building is not open to the public, so it's a very nice chance to see it and to see the view on Paris from the top of the Opera. And you can also see the inside of La Bibliothèque Sainte-Geneviève, which is a bibliothèque, so a library near the Panthéon, and a place well known by students and scholars. Here again, in the title song, you can find a lot of French words and French expressions, so you can also check it. So more than the depiction of France in the movies, I was willing to speak about movies based on French books or French plots. And here I'm not completely sure that you know about those movies, or that you know that those movies are based on French stories. So the first one, and it's probably the more impressive one, is Maya Memsaab. Um, Starring Shah Rukh Khan and uh, Shah Rukh Khan. So according to me, it is one of the most faithful, and I really want to mark it, because it's really like something for me. It's something really huge to say. Okay, the most faithful adaptation of a French book is that Indian movie. So it's an adaptation of a book called Madame Bovary, by the French writer Gustave Flaubert, and it's a very, very important book in France, also because it was released in 1857, and 1857 was a very, very important year in the literature history in France, because it's a year with two trials due to two books. And Madame Bovary is one of those books that leads the writer to a trial for immorality, actually. And the second book of that year, 1857, is Les Fleurs du Mal by Charles Baudelaire. And I don't know how it is translated in English, so I'm not going to try it. So in Maya Memsaab, the end of the movie is not the same as the end of the book, but even then, it's really, really impressively faithful to the book. And it's not just that it's faithful, it's also that you feel that the director of the movie really deeply understood what Gustave Flaubert meant. And I'm really very impressed about that deep reading of the book. Another movie is Hey Baby. It is the remake of an old French movie called Trois hommes et un couffin, which was released in 1985, and then there was an American remake in 1987, I think, so 2 years after. And Hey Baby is probably the remake of the American version, but still it was the American version was also a remake of a French movie. So here again, the plot is fully respected, even if the Bollywood version rejuvenates the French movie in many ways. Of course, it was because Hey Baby was released in 2007, and so the times were not completely the same. The last movie that was coming from a French plot, let's say, is I See You, or that I would like to speak about. So I See You is the remake of an American movie called Just Like Heaven, and this time I didn't check the date, or I don't know them by heart either, so I don't know. But it was quite recent, I think. But this movie was based on a French novel, so the American one, Et si c'était vrai by Marc Lévy. So this is a book that was published also in the starting of the years 2000, I think, or the end of the 90s, and it was in French, and I don't think it's very difficult. I don't know, I haven't read it. So these three movies and many others, like also movies like Bejafrai, can be also a way for you to enter the French culture. You know the stories, you know the plot, and you can go for the French versions. At least maybe in movies, if not in books. And last but not least, this is a question I have had in my mind since a very long time. I'm not really sure about what Indian people understand from that quick image at the end of the movie Jaane tu ya jaane na. So I'm going to show you because you need to see it. I don't know if it is very clear. So this is really at the end of the movie, and this character waiting desperately and longly for someone called Mr. Godot. So he had the paper in his hand. He is coming directly from a French play by the writer Samuel Beckett. Samuel Beckett was an Irish writer, but he mostly wrote in French, and he was also living in France, and he died, I think, in Paris. In France for sure, but I think it was in Paris. And his play En attendant Godot is very, very famous in France. So Samuel Beckett was self-translating his play. So he self-translated this one in English as Waiting for Godot. But I don't know, and I have no clue about that, if it is something very common to study in English-speaking countries or places. But I was willing to finish with this one because I was feeling very happy to see it when I saw the movie. So now I'm completely free for your questions. Alors, bonjour à ceux qui sont arrivés en cours de route. And I don't know if you have questions. It can be about literature, it can be about different things as well. Alors, do you have any questions? To be motivated is something, it depends really on people. So the question was how to be motivated when we are in A1 plus level and we are not able to understand French TV or books. So at first, of course, it can be like difficult to find the proper things to get the motivation, but children's books are something you can try. And as I said, if you manage to go to the end of the book, then you will have that feeling of achievement, which is very, very nice to have. And this feeling of achievement can give you also the motivation to continue with the learning of the grammar and with all the other stuff that can otherwise sometimes feel a little bit like slow in the beginning. Yeah. And practice, of course, and being able to start speaking with others as well. This is, I think it's a very, very good step. Once you dare to speak, then you feel also better about it. And Roman said, I think 2 weeks back, that you can also try to practice your French with kids. And as for me, I would say exactly the same, because with kids, sometimes you're feeling less afraid to speak. And I remember having read books in foreign language with kids. Like a kid asked me, can you please read me this book? And it was not in French. And I was not good at reading in that language. And reading it for a kid makes it very like way more easy to do it. And even at that time, I was able to ask the kid if it was possible to like when I was missing a word, I was asking the kid what does it mean, and the kid was able to explain the word or to show me in the drawing and such things. And that's also something that can be nice to do in the beginning. So what book would I recommend for A2 level? I don't know. That's not really an answer, but it really depends on your own level. I mean, you can be an A2 with a very, very good level in reading, or you can be a very, like, you can find it very difficult to read. It depends on your own level and also on what you like. my first recommendation is to find something that you will really enjoy, and because we have all different tastes in reading, and so it's very important to know what you like and to try to find something that you will like. So I know it's not really a definitive answer, but I cannot give you a better one. So yeah, as for the books, to continue with that, maybe I can give you a very small personal story about books. The first book I read in English is actually the longest book ever published in one volume in French in English, and at the time I started it, I didn't know about it, and I think if I knew about it, I wouldn't have picked up that book, or I would have been very scared, and I was very bad in English, and at that time, and so I just someone told me it was very interesting, and I tried to start it, and I was interested in the book, and I just fell in the book. You know, we have a comics character in France which is called Obélix, and that guy, he fell in the dans la marmite de potions magiques, so in the magic potion, and so he became very strong out of it. And I have the exact same feeling with that book. I fell into it, and it makes my English stronger. And so I think you can pick up any book. It doesn't like, if you like it, then you will keep reading it, and you will end up being stronger in your language skills. So don't be afraid. Yeah, BD, like comics book or les BD, can be also. Yeah, it really depends on the people. It took me a very long time to be able to read comics even in French, but it really depends on the people. And if it is easier, then you can just go for it. Alors, yeah, I will after the. I'm sorry, I didn't saw the first question, but I will at the end of the live, I will try to write down all the things I mentioned, or to make a post with the help of Sura, who is hosting the this page. So for sure I will do it. Don't worry. And as a small information thing, so we are starting new classes. One A1 class is going to start with Roman this week. So Roman, I think you know her. She was in the live last week and the week before. And we are going to start also a B1 level very soon. So I don't know if there is other questions. Maybe I can just go for another story, because maybe you noticed it, but I'm very fond of stories, not just about real things, but also books and literature, and that's actually my field of study, and of research as well. So another story. Last year I was giving French as foreign language classes for people at the university, and so the level was A2 to B1, B2. Officially it was B1, but actually all my students passed the B2 exam at the end, or almost all of them. and they were very, very fond of classical texts, and they asked me to read some classical books, some classics, and I give them a few titles, and I ask them, what do you want to read out of those ones? And they pick up Les Misérables, the book I was speaking about previously, and Les Misérables is like very, very big, very huge. And so I told them, okay, we will try that. We will focus on one character in the book, and we will read a few pages of the book. And what I aim to do is just to give you the will and the curiosity of going back to the book. Maybe it will be next year. Maybe it will be in 10 years. I don't mind. You can you can have your own speed, but at least you will know that you have access to it. And so we read it, and the character I had picked was called Gavroche. It is a little boy living in Paris, so it's a street boy. And okay, I'm going to spoil a little bit, but I think that's okay. But so this character is going to die, and we read in class the moment of his death, and like I think we were like 6 or 7 in the class. It was a small class, and I think that most of the people were crying at the end of the reading, and it was just reading, and that's how powerful the book is also. I mean, I'm pretty sure the vocabulary was so difficult that no one had got all the vocabulary, all the words, all the things, but they had got that thing. And this is the most important thing about reading. And that's why if you have French friends with time, if you have people around you that can help you with reading, read with someone. Don't read alone. It's not needed. You can read with someone. You can hear someone reading to you, or you can try to go slowly, step by step, sentence by sentence, or page by page. This is really, everything is fine. You need to find your own way of reading and of enjoying the things you're reading. So we have a little bit of extra time. Maybe you have some more question. I don't know. You were not very talkative today. So, do you have other questions? What is my teaching approach? It depends on the class actually, because I think that's most of, like the same as I was saying just before, a teacher is not here to feed you, but to try to find ways of teaching with you. So the question is about my teaching approach. So when I'm teaching, I'm always trying to find a way of that suits the students. And so usually it's not completely classical, I must say. I like to make you involve yourself, like in writing things, in producing something. And so for the B1 level, we will have a book. So we will partly follow the book, and I will try to add some text from the classics or from other other texts, and sometimes also paintings, and work on those things. So with a very, very different way of doing things. So, yeah. and it also depends on what the students are coming with. I mean, I'm always very happy if a student is coming with an idea of, okay, I would like to read this, or I would like to do that, or to be able to do that, and then we can do it also in class. So this is also a possibility. You're most welcome. So what I can add is that I have we have other classes, and we have like A1, A2 classes for now, and so I'm also teaching for A1, A2 level nowadays. So for B1 level, what is expected from the student, able to read or able to speak, etc. So you can have even test online, I think. So you can so what is expected, yes, you need to be able to read a few things, you need to be able to speak about a few subjects as well, but you are not expected to master everything for sure. The B1 level is that level in which you are starting to go a little bit outside of your usual circles, if I can say so. Means normally A1, A2 is really, you are speaking about your familiar subjects, about what you know, about what you are using in your daily life. And B1, B2 is you are slowly making that circle of what you can do and what you can speak about bigger. And so you will start to be able to speak about different subjects. So the question is about the if it is multicultural or if it is just Indian at the Zenith Center. So you have the answer of the director of the center, but I can also maybe answer on that. So it aims to be multicultural, but for now there is a lot of Indian natives. And I must say about this that I saw a little bit of everything. I saw classes with a little bit like people from all the world, and classes with people from just one country and one language, and because I'm specifying the language thing because it's different from like if you're being only Indian in a class doesn't mean that everyone is speaking or has the same language at first. So that is also very different. It's a little bit as if it is multicultural actually. So yeah, and I must say that I like both way of like doesn't matter, and it's quite interesting, both of the options. But what is different at the Zenith Center is probably the fact that we are all able to speak English, more or less, and with like accent that is not always that good for me. But anyway, so we are trying to speak in French, but if there is a problem or if there is a specific grammar point that need to be explained, we can explain it in French as well, in English as well. So we have also that possibility, which is good, I think. So I don't know if there is other questions. I think this weekend is Easter, so maybe people are a little bit more busy doing things. I don't know. In France, Easter is, I think it's quite an important festival, and it's also a very personal festival, I think. So the way of celebrating it will depends on from family to family, and some will go and fetch the eggs or decorated eggs in the garden. Some will do other things. Some will just eat a lot of chocolates. But there is many ways of celebrating it, and there is also many ways of imagining it, because some people will say it is a rabbit that is coming with the eggs. Some people will say no, it's I don't know, a bell that is coming. So it is really different. So A1 is starting this week, but I don't know on which day. I'm sorry. Yeah, for the details on the classes, I will let Surab answer, because I don't have all the details. So it is on Tuesday, starting on Tuesday, the next A1 level with Roman. And Roman was here on the live last weekend and the weekend before. So you already were already able to hear her and to meet her, even if it was online. So do you have any other questions? Maybe one or two more questions? So maybe the people were messaging in the chat near this live can tell me about those things I said about the Indian cinema. Were you aware of it, or is it something that was completely new for you? I would be very curious to know about that, especially about the last thing I said about that image I show you. So yeah, nowadays we are having online classes on Zoom, which is working quite fine. On Zoom, we can have the video, we can have we can speak, and we can also have a whiteboard, and we can also share screens. So we have many options, and it's quite really effective, I think. So thank you for the comment about the fact that you didn't knew about those French novels. And maybe now we will be willing to go and read them, and then it will be even better, I think. So this live is going to end in like very soon. So if you have one last question, maybe I can answer or try to answer too. So I think there is no more question. So there will be another session next week, I think. Anyway, there will be, like, we have a lot of ideas about things we are willing to tell you, willing to share. So I think we have a lot of things to say, a lot of subjects. Sometimes like this, like one teacher alone in the life, and sometimes maybe we will try also with several people in the same life. This can be also kind of fun, I think. So I think I will end this direct here. So thank you for watching. Thank you for your comments and your questions, and enjoy reading and enjoy learning French as well. And see you soon, maybe in class, and or next time. Okay. So have a nice evening and have a very nice Easter weekend as well. And remember that Monday is off since it's also the Monday of Easter, so there is nothing open. Okay, so this is the end of the live, and see you soon. Bye.